very first thing, sort of lectures or talks I attended more than 20 years ago now when I started as a grad student was by Kevin, and it was on how to properly use library databases or databases to get papers. And it really helped me with my research. So I'm really happy to have Kevin back here today to talk about the latest trends in research tools and publication methods, I guess. And so I really appreciate you taking the time to do this. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Yeah, welcome everyone to Vancouver. For those of you who are from Western, welcome to Vancouver. Hopefully the weather's a little bit cooler. I went to library school in London. I don't look back fondly on the summers. It's just too hot, too muggy. But London's a very nice city. So welcome everyone this morning. So my name is Kevin. I'm in Science and Engineering librarian here at UBC, and one of my liaison departments is Materials Engineering. So what that means, I do a lot of workshops like this one. I also order books and publications for people in materials engineering. I monitor trends in materials engineering publishing, and I also look at a number of different databases that support materials engineering research here at UBC. In addition to that, we also have a lot of standards. So everything, the standards, online databases, online journals, online books, everything that's important to support research here at UBC is kind of within my responsibilities. So this morning, I've got about 40 minutes to talk about open access, online peer review, predatory journals, all kinds of things like that. Hopefully, all of you should have received a copy of the Word document. If you don't have it, my email is buried here someplace, kevin.lindström@ubc.ca. Fire me off an email and I'll get you a copy. But this is what we're going to be talking about for the next 20 minutes. So I'd say the first 20 minutes are fairly text heavy, so a lot of stuff about open access. So we're going to be looking at this kind of interesting setup here. So for example, what is open access? So have any of you heard of open access? Any of you have not heard about open access? So basically, open access is a new trend in science publishing. So open access did not exist 20 years ago. If you see, there's a little link here to the Budapest. If you go scroll down, something called the Budapest Open Access Initiative from 2001. So many years ago, a number of societies and publishers came together. I think it was in Budapest, and they decided to think about how we can open up scientific publishing to the greater world, to the greater good, to people who aren't affiliated with universities, etc. So they talk about making scholarly research freely available, which is funded by taxpayers around the world and freely available to the public. So this is really, really important when you're at a university or at an organization, let's say if you're in the developing world, and you don't have access to the resources as if you were here in Canada. So I see lots of requests all the time from librarians who are in Mexico and Brazil, etc., and they need access to publications that their library can't provide. Now, there are sketchy websites out there. I'm not going to mention them, but I remember talking to some students a couple of years ago, and they were just brand new students from around the world, and they said, well, we normally get our journal articles from, the website, some sketchy, you can buy all kinds of things on these websites, but you are now UBC students or students at a Canadian university, and we spend millions of dollars in collections, and we have lots of services in place to give you the information you need. So that's one side. We subscribe to these journals, but for organizations and countries and universities that don't have the budgets and funding, open access is a really, really important thing. And you'll see this really amazing statement here, harnessing the power of the internet. And I did not write that, but it seems kind of dated, the power of the internet. Well, yeah, okay, the power of the internet. But basically, it means bringing the results of academic research to scientists, professors, medical researchers, etc., around the world. So we've got the Budapest initiative. Oops, where's my mouse? Oh, there we go. Sorry. And you'll see one of the major driving forces is, for example, the EU, the U.S. government. So here's something from the Biden administration instructing all U.S. agencies to require immediate access to federally funded research after it's published, starting in 2026. So that's a real transformation in terms of the whole publishing environment. Okay, so some more links that you can follow up on. And you'll also see that the UBC Library has a scholarly communications website for those of you who are UBC students. And we can click on this link, and it'll just take you there really quickly, just to give you an example of some of the content that's posted there. So this is our Scalcom, our scholarly communications website, and they talk about how to make your research open access, et cetera, et cetera. So you can go through this. So this is something we're going to be talking about when it comes to open access publisher discounts. Open access is not free. There's a lot of discussion about open access. Has it been beneficial for researchers, for universities, for publishers? It's still very, very much like a very hot topic. And let me make sure I don't, oops, I closed the wrong.
You can just minimize it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, perfect. I thought I closed the wrong tab. Sorry. Okay, so there's a link here to UBC Library's Scholarly Communications, and there's also a very useful directory called the DOAJ, the Directory of Open Access Journals. And what this directory is basically it pulls together open access journals from a number of different publishers. So it could be a university press, it could be a commercial publisher, so university publishers, academic publishers, for-profit publishers. But you'll see that there's a nice link here. And what the DOAJ tries to do is make sort of highlight online or open access journals. And they talk about, so this is a directory, and what this directory does, it really attempts to do, is to exclude sketchy, for-profit, predatory publishers that are out there that are hoping to get your money and your research and repackage it and resell it, do things that you may not necessarily have intended on happening. So that is the directive on DOAJ. So there's also some other things you need to be aware of when you're publishing your open access journal, and it's Creative Commons licensing. So there's an organization called Creative Commons. Has anyone here not heard about Creative Commons? We haven't? Okay. Something to be really aware of. So for example, copyright and your ownership of your article when you publish it is really, really important. You ensure that you maintain copyright because that way you have some control. So a lot of publishers, for example, Elsevier, and we'll look at the Elsevier link in a second, but there's a nice link here to creativecommons.org. And what this organization does is an international nonprofit organization dedicated to, as you can see, helping build and sustain a thriving commons of shared knowledge and culture. So they talk about licensing, so different kinds of licensing, public domain tools, because those are important things to think about when you publish your article. How do you want to be cited? How do you want to allow people to use the content in your journal article, etc. So that is the Creative Commons organization. And they have a very nice tool called Share Your Work. And what this tool does, it kind of allows you to share your work, and how do you choose the right license for your journal article or your preprint. So what you can do is you can go through, and they have this nice little tool called Get Started with the Chooser. And what this allows you to do, oops.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay, so yes, I know license you need. No, I don't. I need some help. So what you can choose this, and basically it takes you through a number of steps, and it will generate a Creative Commons license that may be appropriate for your journal article or your research. So that's a really nice website that's available to you through Creative Commons. Okay, so back to our Word document. Okay, so just to give you an example, Elsevier, as you're probably aware, was one of the major publishers for materials engineering research. So lots of important journals listed on Science Direct. And you'll see that they've got a really nice website here, or link here, and you can look at this. Okay. Okay. So CRKN is the Canadian Research Knowledge Network. UBC is a part of it. I'm assuming Western is as well. And that's how we negotiate with publishers like Elsevier, Wiley, Springer, all the kind of Canada-wide usage agreements for providing online access to all these different journals. So all the major universities across Canada, we pool our money, and hopefully because we're all together in as one organization, we have hopefully more influence, more negotiation power with influential publishers like Elsevier. So they talk about how does the process work, the agreement, etc. And you can go through this link, and there's some videos. Okay. Someplace in here, I've looked at this. Okay, so license options, etc. They talk about. So now you can go back to the Creative Commons website and say, well, what is all this CC, BY, NC, and D business about? Creative Commons will discuss it, and you'll have more detailed information about what it really means to when you publish your article. What type of articles is covered, and this is directly from Elsevier. And you should be able to find similar information from Springer, Wiley, some of the other publishers and that are listed as well. Okay, I'm just going to.
So since this year, Western University has an agreement with all Elsevier journals to have the APC waived, and that seems to be the same for all the other Canadian universities, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
And that's because of our all of our membership in CRKN.
Yeah, good.
So there's another tool called Sherpa Romeo, and it's just another tool to tell you about open access options, etc. And we can go to that link and you can explore more about a particular journal, a particular publisher, what the requirements are, etc. So, any questions so far? Okay. All right, I'm kind of aware of the time here. So, so there's different kinds of open access. There's green open access, there's gold open access. And typically what's meant about gold open access is you submit your article to Journal X, posted by publisher Y, and they say, okay, you have some requirements. You can make it open access immediately. In other words, you pay the APCs, the off-the-page charges, and any other charges. You pay them the money, the $5,000 US, whatever it happens to be, and your journal is instantaneously, once it's got to peer review, of course, automatically available to anyone around the world, regardless of whether or not they're part of a university or not. So that's gold open access, immediate access to anyone around the world via the publisher's website. So the challenge is the fact that you have to deal with article publishing charges, which can be, as I say, fairly substantial. So there's gold open access, and they talk about some more information. Talk about gold. So it's easy if I have my notes here. Now there are other options in terms of green open access, so you can submit a preprint to a publisher or a digital repository, and it's embargoed for 12 months. But I think more and more people are going to gold open access, declaring the money, and just making it immediately available. So there's some links here. So there's things about from creativecommons.org, sharing your work, and there's a nice website here from once again from Elsevier, Your Guide to Publishing Open Access with Elsevier. So there's lots of information available to you from the various publishers, of course. That's their mandate, is to encourage you to publish with them. They get your APCs, or your money, so to speak, and then, of course, they host your article, and it's cited, and that's how you contribute. So also, Springer has a very nice link. So Springer is one of the other major publishers, and all of these describe sort of the similar information, just from the perspective of that publishing company. So what is open access and open research? And one thing I should also mention about open access is now to be a trend now, probably a requirement in the future, where not just your journal article is open access, but any underlying code or any underlying data that you created as part of the journal article. So you'll be expected to make the journal article open access. If you write some be open access. So people could read your research, they can take your data, they can reanalyze your data, hopefully build upon it, maybe look at your code, enhance your code, use your code, implement it in perhaps ways that you may not have expected. So those are other trends that are coming with open access publishing. So this is the Springer link, just more information about what is open access and open research. Okay, so green open access is kind of where you submit a preprint, it's embargoed for 12 months, and then it's eventually made freely available. Now, there's lots of, so if you wanted to, the next step is to go to a journal you might consider publishing in, and just looking at their open access policies. So something you could do on your own. There's lots of really good background information from an organization called the Open Access Scholarly Publishing Association. So they've got glossaries, they've got what is open access. And I think if you just type into Google, what is open access, you will get millions of links that you can follow up on your own. So lots and lots of really good quality information from publishers, universities, libraries, societies, etc. Now, what does open access mean to people in Canada? Well, the crucial thing to be aware of is the fact that the tri-councils, whether it's NSERC, CHR, SHRC, the three major funding granting agencies in Canada, will be requiring that your article be open access. So if you've got your professor, your group applied for NSERC funding, and you got funding from NSERC, the expectation is that because you receive funding from these granting agencies, your article will be open access. So that's it. So they'll give you some options in terms of where to put your article, but okay. So you can put it in an online repository. You can put it in. You could pay the page APCs, make your article gold open access, etc. But you'll also see highlighted here the cost of publishing in open access journals is an eligible expense under the use of grant funds. So hopefully, when you apply forensic funding, you put in a line item. Oh, I'm going to publish 3 articles this year in Elsevier. So what that's going to cost, like $50,000 US? Yeah.
Or in Nature, it's 9,000 US.
Yeah, 9,000 US. So.
And now we don't have to do that, right?
No, that's right. That's right.
But do we have a agreement with Nature as well?
We'll get to that in a second.
Huh.
Okay. So now, hopefully, a lot of serious money is involved in this. So UBC Library comes to the rescue. So you see, CRKN comes to the rescue. Thank you, Canadian taxpayers and the current government. So you see, here are a whole list of publishers that publish materials engineering research. We've got Elsevier, American Chemical Society, Springer, Wiley, Taylor and Francis, IOP, etc., etc. So I pulled these all off from various databases. So these are societies. So of these societies, who can you expect to get funding for? So if you go to our scholarly communication website, you'll see a link here called Open Access Publisher Discounts. So what you need to do is go to this website, and if the publisher that you're interested in publishing with isn't listed here, well, you're kind of out of luck, essentially, but you probably do some more digging as well. So for example, there's American Chemical Society, but let's go look at Elsevier. So there's Electrochemical Society. So here's Elsevier Science Direct, and you'll see some percentages here. Okay, so UBC affiliated authors eligible 100% discount on Elsevier hybrid journals, including 4 hybrid specialty journals. So, so UBC for most gold open access, etc. So what you need to do is follow up on these links, and
so gold open access is only 20%.
Yeah.
Ah.
But there's this. Okay. So let's just have a look at this link, and you see there's all the journals that are listed. There's the APC discounts, etc. So what you'll need to do is go through this list, look at the journal you're interested in publishing with, and then.
So corrosion science is in here, right?
Yeah,
it's
Elsevier, yeah, corrosion science is now free.
Was it solely open access?
Yeah, because it's a hybrid journal with Elsevier. Yeah.
Okay. But there's still APCs associated with it, though, right?
Yeah, but you get 100% discount.
Okay. Okay, got it.
Automatically.
Oh, nice. Okay. Okay. So I say so this is the website to look at. So for those folks from Western, your library should have a equivalent setup. But this is the website to look at. You can browse through your publisher, and then from there look at the details about the journal you're interested in publishing with, the costs. You have to be the primary author. You need the fourth author. Sometimes there's all kinds of little things to be aware of when it comes to taking advantage of APCs. But I know when it comes to, like, for example, the Wiley titles, one of my other liaison departments is Earth, Ocean, Atmospheric Science. I sent this email out to people in that department, in chemistry, and suddenly got all these emails back saying, thanks, Kevin, I just saved myself $5,000, $3,000 US, because we weren't aware of this agreement with Wiley and ACS. So sometimes it's really important for you to do your homework and look at any author discounts that may be available to you. And this is all courtesy of CKRN.
Yeah, here it's the corresponding author. This is something I ran into because I came from Sweden. Sweden had this kind of agreements much earlier, so we had everything was free. And then I switched to Canada, and suddenly I still put my Swedish affiliation, of course, to get the free open access. But then after a while, they were like, no, your institution did not agree anymore that you were with them. And this is the important thing. So if you want to have, because we have different universities here, we have also UPEI. So we have small universities; they might not have the same agreements. So then the question is, what do we do in collaborative projects? The answer is corresponding author needs to have a university address that has the discount. Okay, important for the future.
Okay, so that's I've got still some material to cover. So in any case, that's what you need to think about is author page charges. Is your journal that you're considering publishing with part of CKRN, these larger groups, and that's how we have it organized here at UBC. So by publisher, and then you just navigate and read the details, the fine print really carefully. So other things we want to talk about today is a predatory journal. So you type in predatory journal into, what is a predatory journal? There's lots and lots of information, and I provided a nice link to a journal article here, and this will pop up in a second. And this talks about predatory publishing practices. So these are publishers that are trying to get your money, trying to get your research, get you to pay lots of money, and take advantage of, citation manipulation, all kinds of sketchy practices. So they talk about an overview of predatory publishing, and you can go through this article, and I just want to, without going into too much detail, just let you know that these kind of organizations exist and that you should be aware of them. And when you get potential requests from publishers and journals that you've never heard of, and they have funny-looking websites that show all kinds of things you can buy. I've seen all kinds of interesting publishers out there. Be very, very careful because they may take your research, repackage it, do all kinds of interesting things. So this is a nice article that talks about, gives you some definitions of predatory publishing, but I think it's something you can read up on your own and find out more about what is a predatory publisher, how to recognize them, and why you should be aware of these kinds of organizations. Now, has anyone here heard of Retraction Watch? It's one of my favorite websites, and I get email notifications every day about shenanigans in the research in the publishing world. You know, people who rip off some student's thesis from 20 years ago and repackage it as their own, plagiarism, or they manipulate the data files. You know, they're publishing an article and the data doesn't match up, or the data sets are fuzzy, or the images are kind of dubious quality. Retraction Watch is a really fun website, and you'd be amazed what people will do, because I think some people, here's a good one. The demonstrations have died. Oops. Yeah, okay. So this is kind of fun stuff you see on Retraction Watch. You know, sign up for the emails. Ooh, there's another one. That's fun. So Elsevier, okay. Oh, geez. What research is behind this? So lots of information about retracted articles. So retractions, because sometimes articles are retracted for honest mistakes, sometimes less honest mistakes. So Retraction Watch is a really fun website to look at. There's another really fun website called PubPeer. And PubPeer is kind of without going into too much detail, it's another site where people allows, like it says here, enable scientists to search for their publication or their peers' publications, here maybe their competitor, etc., and provide feedback and or start conversation anonymously. So kind of a fun website to look at. You can go to PubPeer, and the folks at PubPeer VV come up with an extension that you can add this extension to your browser and see whether or not people are commenting on your article. I don't know. You can have a look at it. So lots of fun stuff out there when it comes to peer review, predatory journals. So PubPeer, Retraction Watch are two of my favorite ones. So here's something that just popped into my inbox, my email inbox yesterday, and this is from a publisher called MVPI. A lot of people publish in their journals. Some of you may have published with them, but they're always doing things like author citation manipulation. So we can look at this link, and there's other publishers like Hindawi. I know Hindawi is following Traction Watch, and they talk about author citation manipulation. So sometimes, in the academic world, you want to be cited. Sometimes there's ways of manipulating how many times you've been cited, who cites you, all that kind of thing. So this may or may not apply to you, but people monitor this all the time. And I think a lot of this comes from the whole, publisher parish kind of environment. There's a lot of pressure. You want to get your articles out there. You want to get them cited, that kind of thing. So how do you evaluate journals? Well, one website is the DOAJ, the Directory of Open Access Journals. It's one good tool. There's two other tools that you can take advantage of. So if you happen to be using Web of Science, there's a complementary database that goes with the Web of Science called Journal Citation Report, JCR. So you often hear about high impact factor journals. Where does that come from? The high impact factor journal sort of term comes from Web of Science and the Journal Citation Reports. And what they do is they look at the journal, how many articles are published within that journal, how many of those articles are cited, and then you do some basic statistical analysis, and they come up with what's called the impact factor. So there's a couple links here. I won't open them, but there's a JCR, which is part of the Web of Science, which is part of a company called Claravit, and that's their product. The database I'm going to be looking at today is called Scopus, and Scopus is an Elsevier product, so they're two competing companies, and they also have something called, they also evaluate journals, and they have their own statistical measure. So you often see publishers saying, our journal is now indexed in the Web of Science, or our journal is now indexed in Scopus, and that's supposed to be kind of an advertising thing, because the journal is now recognized as a reputable, peer-reviewed journal, and it's because it's been indexed in either the Web of Science or in Scopus. And there's a nice little link here to to how Scopus chooses their journals, their content policy and selection, because they don't want to be making articles available to you through Scopus and then find suddenly all these journals have been retracted. It just doesn't really look very good. So the publishers need to know. They talk about the title evaluation process. And this gives you some idea as to how journals are entered into, or how journals are indexed, rather, in either Scopus or in a similar database like Web of Science. Okay. So preprints. Let's get rolling into preprints. So lots of good information about preprints. There's lots of preprint servers, and people in physics, astronomy, astrophysics have been using preprints for decades. And it's the primary way that people in those disciplines communicate. They put their articles on archive, and people see it right away, and then eventually it gets published in, PhysRevD, Astrophysical Journal, etc. So for some communities, preprints have been around for a very long time, and now they're just sort of getting up to speed with other departments or other disciplines like chemistry and others, chemarchive.org, etc. Now, the crucial thing to remember about preprints is that you can take your research and you can upload it to archive, you can put it to chemarchive, any of these other preprints, but why would you want to do it? So some of the major advantages, and this is from the folks at chemarchive, is that you can gather feedback, you can rapidly disseminate work to a wide audience. So you've come up with this new discovery, you want to get it out right away, and that way you've got sort of precedent, you've come up with this technology, this development, this contribution. So the priority and precedent boosts the visibility of research findings and make research work more discoverable because it's now available as a preprint. So what are some things to be aware of? Well, I would say that it's always a good idea to choose, let's say, a number of journals you might consider publishing with. I mean, and I'd be fairly broad. You could look at Science, you could look at Nature, and any other journal that you might be interested in, and you read their preprint policies very, very carefully, because you will find sometimes they're very clear that you're going to publish an article as this. They will allow for a preprint. They will allow for a preprint manuscript of your article. It's not pre-publication, and sometimes the wording can be quite vague or fuzzy, but it's really important for you to clarify with the journal, the editorial board of that journal, what their official policy is. So they talk about pre-publication. So it could be like a preprint. How about you go to a conference and you publish a conference paper? Is that considered pre-publication? A lot of different things to be considered to think about. And I also thought about this the other day, dissertation. So is a dissertation considered pre-publication? I don't know. So when in doubt, like I say, always contact your advisor, the journal's editorial board, those kinds of things. So like I said, I've looked at this, and sometimes they're very clear, or sometimes they're less clear in the wording. So they talk about, this is from the editor's perspective, nice link to Elsevier, what counts as prior publication. So is a conference paper prior publication, is a dissertation considered prior publication, or a preprint? So things to be aware of. Now, one thing you can do as a UBC student is that you can embargo your thesis. So let's say you're graduating and you've applied for a patent, you've applied for a journal article, and you're concerned about whether or not your dissertation is going to be considered as some form of pre-publication. Here at UBC, you can actually, what's called embargoing your thesis. So you graduate, this goes through the graduate studies, has nothing to do with the library, but you can go to their website, and there's a nice link here saying delaying publication of your thesis. So let's say you've got some articles in the pipeline, you're applying for some patents, etc. You do have some options in terms of when you make your UBC thesis freely available when I'm looking at UBC research, and I'm browsing through our UBC Library's digital repository list, I often see many, I can't give you a number, but I see a lot of dissertations that are actually embargoed for whatever reason. So you do have that option as well in terms of when you decide to make your thesis freely available. Okay, how to promote your research. I'm not the world's biggest social media person. I mean, I've got a Twitter account, which I'm kind of a person of blessing. I try to post about scientific stuff, but I'm sure there's all kinds of other things on Twitter, Facebook. You guys probably know this better than I do, because I'm not that interested. But I mean, unless they're talking about the Edmonton Oilers. Oops. Oops. Anyway, so how do you promote your article? Do you put it on Chem Archive? What do you do next? Do you let the world come to discover it somehow? You probably have to be a bit more proactive than that. ORCID IDs are kind of useful. An ORCID ID is a unique numerical ID assigned to your name. You can create your own ORCID page. You can highlight conference papers, things that you've done. And so anyone here have an ORCID ID? Has it been a good thing?
Mostly it allows me to log into Elsevier reviewer stuff faster than normal.
Okay.
A lot of the journals are now requiring that you have an ORCID.
Okay.
It is required.
And for the first time now, one of the conferences, the Metsoc conference, required ORCID IDs.
Okay.
When you submitted a paper. So yeah.
And departments and universities might require it.
Yeah.
So I think it'll be pretty commonplace for everyone.
And how have you used your ORCID ID?
We use public paper.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I've seen some really incredibly well built out ORCID profiles. Like some professors are totally on top of it. They put all their stuff. They put when they did their master's PhD from 20 years ago. They put all this stuff online. Conference papers, poster sessions. It's a nice way to build your academic research profile. It's your ORCID.
But it's more like, it's better when you have a non-unique name, right?
Oh, yeah.
Because the meaning with it is that it's only your work and it's verified.
Mm-hmm.
So if you, for example, Chinese names, there can be so many that have the same name. So you make sure it's visible to someone what your work was, basically. Because even Google Scholar cannot do that.
And there's a nice link here from the American Geophysical Union, because they use ORCID IDs, and people are trying to promote from that community. There's a nice link here about how to increasing your impact with citations and collaborations, and you can go to this link and see what have a look there. So finally, Scopus. So after that, so we've talked about open access, preprints, etc. Scopus is one of my favorite databases. For looking at research publications, who's doing it, where it's being published, that kind of thing. And this is just an example, cut and paste this, a really basic search, and I can show you some things that you can discover using Scopus. So let me go back, and we're going to go live here. Oops, what have I done?
No, you just click on the browser.
Okay, sorry. Okay. All right, sorry about that. My apologies. Okay. Okay.
I think you were using Ed, weren't you, before?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
Okay.
So you want to go to Scopus?
Yes, yes.
And do you remember?
.com. It'll take us there eventually. So we're on campus. So okay. 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 I have this all set up, so my apologies there. Okay. All right. Sorry about this. It was all worked out before I left the. Okay, like that. Okay.
You have a very long password.
That's what everyone says. Yeah. And it's not, my password is stored in these fingers. And if I change it,
Oh.
don't worry.
It's safe.
It's done, don't worry. And because we're here at UBC and our two-step security, I was never. Okay, perfect, we're on. Okay, so this is Scopus. One of my favorite databases because it gives, Web of Science is a complementary database to Scopus, but we can do some basic things here. We could do author searching, of course, but I can look for some articles on our topic. So looking at pipelines and epoxy coding. So we'll put in our keywords. Oops, sorry. Or I made it pretty general. Polymers. And typically, the more people who watch my typing, the worse it gets. Okay.
So why didn't you put a star?
Polymers, I don't know.
I see, okay.
Yeah. And corrosion. And our other keywords. And we've got pipeline and steel. Okay. So all of our articles have to have some mention of epoxies, of corrosion. Oops. Sort of done. And pipeline. And steel. Okay. So we'll follow and click on search. Okay, so these are the results we get from Scopus. So, okay. More articles. Oh, I think I looked at, maybe I narrowed this down by number of years. Okay, so what we can do, so lots of research being published on this topic. I'm going to look at the last couple of years here. Okay. Okay, so the question I often get from people is, I love Google Scholar. Google Scholar gives me good results. So I don't work for Google. I don't work for Elsevier. I try to support people here at UBC. So the reason I like databases like Web of Science and Scopus is I know exactly what's being searched. So for example, if I go to the sources, this will give me a list of all the journals that are indexed in the web in Scopus. With journals or data search engines like Google Scholar, you're not exactly sure what they're searching, when they're searching, when the robot is calling a publisher's website, etc. So databases like Scopus, Compendex, Web of Science, they do give you some control. They tell you exactly what's being searched, which journals, when that content is being added, etc. So that's why I like databases like Scopus. So you'll see some background information. And if we scroll down, what I really want to show you is this handy-dandy little tab called preprints. So many of the databases, Web of Science, for example, SciFinder, Compendex, are trying to add more preprint coverage. So you see there's a link here to preprints. You can click on that link, and you'll see that there's, when the preprint was published, so we have 118 preprints. So we've got some things from this preprint server, and we'll scroll down to lots of research, and I'm going to go look for Ed's, one of Ed's preprints, just to show you how it's going to look. And just bump this up here a little bit, and just see which countries are really, oh, there we go. Excellent. Let me just do this. Let me cut to the chase. Okay. Okay, so here's, here's one. So this is from 2023. It's in Kim Archive. There's the authors, and we can look at the abstract. So there's our keywords. That's the field we're searching. And let's look at the preprint itself. Now, you will find that, so interesting information here. So here's the preprint from October of last year. This has been printed, published, right?
Yes.
Right. So here's an example where we've got 203 views. There's been 72 downloads. So this article was published in 2023. It's probably been cited, I don't know, a few times. We can look into that. But this kind of gives you an example of how when people have access to a preprint, they're able to download it, they can cite it, they can look at the research. So oftentimes, preprints are downloaded far more, or the number of times an article has been downloaded is far greater than the times an article has been cited. Because the citations will follow afterward because of the whole publishing process. So this is how this is from Kim Archive, and there's a DOI associated with it, and we can look at the preprint. And so it looks like a preprint, and sometimes the preprints are very similar to the final version, but sometimes they move the figures around, or they clarify some of the wording, or maybe the peer reviewers gave them some good, you may not see the peer review comments here, but this is how the preprint will look. So other things you can do with Scopus, so you can discover research in the preprint world. We can go back and go back to our search, and we've got all of our journal articles here. Sorry, let's go back one step. Sorry. So you can get the most recent articles first. So these are published the last couple of years, looking at keywords, corrosion. Oh, now I know one word I want to throw in, coding. Sorry. There's one I want to do too many. Okay, and this should narrow it down quite a bit. Okay, yeah. Okay, so we've got 1,000 articles published in these last few years. So we can, on the left-hand side, you'll see what kind of documents are indexed in Scopus. So we've got conference papers, a lot of journal articles, review papers, which are really useful because they're not original research, but they're kind of summaries about a particular topic within pipeline coatings. So what happens is with a review paper is that the group of people sit down and they download probably hundreds of articles. And then they take that information and they summarize it into what's called a review paper. So I can sort of see AI applications for writing review papers coming pretty quickly, because who wants to sit down? I mean, I shouldn't say that. There's some real value in sitting down and reading lots and lots of articles and summarizing it, but it's a very big job as well. So some of the Scopus, you'll see there's conference papers, etc. So where is this research being published? So we can look at all this. So polymers, coating technology, applied polymer science, etc. Surface technology. So you can identify titles where you might want to publish your research. Where is this research being carried out? So lots of research being carried out in China. Funding sponsors, anything from NSERC, probably something in this list. So you see the countries where the research is being done. Language. Here we go, open access. So of these 1,000 articles, and of course you have to remember open access is a fairly recent development. Not all of these articles will be open access, but as students that are, as a student, as part of a university, you should have online access to all this content, providing that your library has a subscription. But you'll see that there is 250 gold or hybrid gold. Hybrid gold is just another form of gold open access, and you can take your search results. I mean, this is not really that useful for you because as students, you should have access to all of this content. But if you're not a student, then that's a different matter. But what we can do is we can choose the kind of open access, limit to, and now we'll go back to the top. Oops. Okay, and we start, so you'll see where the research is being published, academic acta, of course, et cetera. Okay. All right. So here's some of our Royal Society of Chemistry sustainability. And what we can do is we can click on this and you see there's an open access. So theoretically, you could look at this article, you could be on your smartphone at a, in the airport or traveling around someplace, and you should have access to it regardless of whether or not you're on UBC Wi-Fi, because it's open access. So we should be able to, I always test this because I get my phone out and I try to go online, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. Oops, where's my mouse? Oops, sorry, okay. Should be beautiful. So full tab stop. Of course, if you're a UBC student, this is the link you would go, but you can also just go, use a PDF. So because it's open access, you can just download it. But I know we are on the campus network already, so we're probably, our IP addresses are probably registered to the Royal Society of Chemistry. So that is some of the functionality that's built into the Scopus database. So you can find your conference papers, your review articles, your research articles, as well as some preprint papers. And there are other databases out there, but I can only show you what we have access to at UBC. And I think what Scopus covers, ChemArchive, archive.org, SSRN, there's another Elsevier hosted preprint server, and there's a medical one as well, MedArchive, I think it's, or BioArchive, I guess. So those are the four preprint servers that are currently available to you through Scopus, and I'm sure they're evaluating other preprint servers as well. There's one, Electrochemical Society has a preprint server. They're growing all the time. So come back in 6 months and they may have added even more content. So that is a quick intro into Scopus. One last thing I really like about Scopus, and this is what you can also do with the Web of Science, is the default display is most recent. But what you can do is you can take your search results, and let's say you're trying to find a really important older article. And one of the easiest ways to do that is to resort your results by time cited. Now, we're only looking at going back to 2022, which is a fairly short period of time. This article was published 2 years ago. It's already been cited 58 times, but biomedical implants. So, but resorting your results by time cited is an easy, very quick and easy way to identify older, highly cited, important papers. So, any questions about Scopus?
It's not about Scopus. In your talk earlier, you mentioned about preprint and all the unclear things about it. And from my experience, it's like some of the journals are misusing these goals, and sometimes they accuse us for something but plagiarism. Basically, they are referring to the work that you published this before. So we don't publish this, or
so the journals are accusing you of plagiarism because there's a preprint version of the paper that you just submitted. So it's one of the things that we've had to deal with on 4 occasions.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And so it gets pretty, what's the word? It's a very uncomfortable thing to have to discuss. Because we've had one where they actually flat out accused us of plagiarizing when it was clear that we were allowed to have preprints and we were upfront about it. So it's something students should be aware of because there is a downside.
Yeah. Keep good track. Keep good records of your emails and your conversations, and yeah. But that's one downside. But you would think that the editorial board would have been clear.
In the end, they ended up apologizing.
Oh, good.
Yeah, but it took a few emails and getting a bit heated.
Yeah. Well, you just do what you have to do, right? Yeah. Any other questions about Scopus or open access?
I have a question about some of the publishers, like Wiley or IoT. Recently, they have added another feature using AI and pre-scanning of the paper which you are submitting in Google Publishing. So, is there anything if we submit our paper to scan it with AI and then it goes to maybe stored in a repository? No, the IoT and Wiley, they have their own scanner, AI assisted scanner.
Yeah.
If you submit their paper, is there any chance that we should scan our paper before submitting, or there could be any plagiarism issue afterwards if we submit not in Google Publisher but somewhere else after scanning our paper in Google?
Yeah. I wish I could give you some guidance on that. I don't know.
We use Grammarly. We have a license for Grammarly. It has a plagiarism check.
Yeah, so sometimes we submit to turn it in, but I think what he's concerned about is not
the AI check.
It's that they will scan it and save a version of it, which will then get flagged as being already out there. If you, for example, submit it to a different publication after once it gets rejected, because then there's a record of it being, of the text, if you will, even though it hasn't been published.
Yeah. I'd have to say, as a librarian, there's a lot of things that happen behind the scenes that I'm not privy to. And I think the longer you publish and the more experience you have, both negative and positive experiences with publishers, the more things you'll see and the more things you'll be aware of. Yeah, I don't really wish I could have something. I really don't know.
Yeah, another thing is repository. The Canada researcher is requiring that we have all the raw data repositories, and most of the journals now say you have to have like a database or you have to have your raw data somewhere. So what I use is Open Science Forum, and I make it non-public until the paper is accepted. Then I go and say now it's public, and then I link the two with the right DOI number, because otherwise I have the same issue. I never did a preprint because I'm always afraid that the reviewer come with really good comments and then I have this stupid error published. But I will do it if I have like a super cool discovery.
So you can update the preprint, right? So you can put a newer version, and I think there's a way of saying this final published version, right? Linking to it. So that's where, the power of the preprint is a pain. It's honestly, we've had some issues with it. But the power is in the fact that people see the document much sooner and get lots of downloads. And hopefully, we'll see it works hopefully more soon. So for UBC students, we have Circle, right? Where we can upload, I think we can even upload data to Circle.
There's so many different places you can put data sets now. You can put it on Zenodo. It's a very popular sort of multidisciplinary data repository. I know people in Earth and Ocean Sciences, they have data all over the place. But I'd say I see, Circle is one. I'd say Zenodo is a very popular one. And it's very easy to use. You put your data, and you can make it. Embargo your data set or access to your data set, so it's not discoverable until. I mean, the timing of the process and the timing is crucial, right? When you submit your article, when you make the data available, or you can make the data available only to the reviewers, and then eventually, once it's gone through peer review and accepted, then the data set is accessible to anyone. So the timing is, as we mentioned, it's important. And who has access to the data set and the article when. So.
Any other questions? Right, well, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.